Ba-dum, bum, 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 bum.
Squadron leaders reporting. Admiral, this is
Blue leader standing by.
This is Gold leader standing by.
This is red leader.
Standing by.
Welcome to the Star Wars Post livecast, the official livecast show of the StarWarsPost.com, your Star Wars home for news, reviews, features, and more. The StarWarsPost.com, the galaxy at your fingertips. And here is your host of the Star Wars Post livecast, Max Pallas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Star Wars Post livecast. It's November 1st, 2018, and this is episode 21, Star Wars Boba Fett canceled. Like canceled, like dead canceled. Tonight we'll discuss Kathleen Kennedy's remarks about the cancellation of the Boba Fett film, the news, and more. With that, let's go ahead and meet this week's panel. She's a writer and contributor to the StarWarsPost.com, Liz Larson.
Hello, happy to be here.
Hey, Liz. He's the owner and editor-in-chief of the MandalorianWars.com, our good friend Pete.
Boba Fett?
Hello,
Boba Fett
Pete.
where?
Okay, guys. Light week this week, but we got some interesting topics to talk about. But before we get to that, let's get to some housekeeping. The Star Wars Post Livecast now is also a podcast on iTunes, so please subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on iTunes. Also, please don't forget to subscribe and give us a thumbs up on this channel on YouTube, and follow us on Twitter and Facebook at the Star Wars Post. Also, we want to hear from you, so if you have any questions or comments, send to livecast at StarWarsPost.com, and we just might answer it on the show. I had a fun week this week. I hope you guys did too. It was kind of crazy. Let's see, the kids are sick, the wife is sick, and I got to order meat online for the first time. So that was my week. I know.
Online meat.
You know, this keto diet, I went online, found this cool, I guess, place that everyone buys their beef. What's it called? Like beefbutcher.com or whatever it else. And literally a whole pile of meat showed up on my front door this morning in a package. So I'm like, I ordered meat online. Like, this is a new experience for me. Okay, guys, so there wasn't a whole lot of information on Star Wars this week. There was one big story that came out, and of course, that's Kathleen Kennedy talked about the Boba Fett spin-off film, which has been rumored now for several months, and this is a big story that Collider had carried initially, and then others followed suit. But we got a little bit more this week when journalist Eric Weber has taken to Twitter on October 25th and reported that Lucasfilm CEO Kathleen Kennedy, in person, had confirmed that the rumored Boba Fett spin-off film project has been canceled. Not super surprised. His tweet actually said, Kathleen Kennedy just confirmed to me Boba Fett movie is 100% dead, 100% focusing on The Mandalorian. So it's nice to get confirmation, right? Especially if Kathy's doing an actual quote to a journalist, right? I think that's cool to get that. It does fit in line what we talked about with the spin-offs, especially after the mediocre response to Han Solo, in the theaters. And with The Mandalorian here, I think it makes sense. What do you guys think? Do you, that is good that this thing is at least on the shelf and has no plans to come out soon?
I think Boba Fett's showing up in this show. That's what this is.
Oh, you think it's gonna be in the live action show?
Oh, for sure.
Really?
I think what happened was they were debating whether or not this was actually going to happen and going back and forth. And Jon Favreau was just tapping them on the shoulder saying, "Can I have Boba Fett? Can I have him? Can I have him? Can I have him?" And they said, "You know what? You can have him." And I also think about all the confusion that happens between the standalone movies and the saga films now. That's going to be like 100 times more when this show comes out. And people are like, is Luke going to be in this show? Is so-and-so going to be in this show? So to have both a Mandalorian show and a Boba Fett movie, I think would just have been too confusing for the general audience.
And I got to wonder, because I think one of the early rumors we heard was that the Han Solo movie, the Boba Fett movie, were all going to kind of cross over and tie in. And so it was going to be set like a different, so I think the fact that the Boba Fett movies got sidetracked when Trank got fired, and it sort of threw off their whole timetable, and then Han Solo underperformed. It's like, why are we going to bother trying to make these movies all work together when we've got this other project coming that we can focus on? And then when Iger comes out and says we're going to slow down the film productions and focus on things like the TV for the app, I think it makes more sense. And what Liz is saying, I think, makes a lot of sense, because who's directing the season finale? Taika Waititi. What would be better than to have Temuera Morrison show up as old Boba Fett in the season finale of the show?
All chewed up.
It'd be wild. People would freak out.
All chewed up and scarred out and everything else. Yeah, I mean, I could see that happen. To me, this makes... I mean, this project, because I've been following this since the beginning, right? The story of a possible Boba Fett film literally came about the first few weeks I had the Star Wars Post online. So like the site kind of grew up with this spinoff film. We knew the treatments were going around for a while, and then it's been fed out. And then the whole drama with Trank getting fired because he was too busy coked out on the floor of another set, right, of the Fantastic Four, and that whole drama that had happened there. It seemed like this project was destined to fail, like from the beginning. It just never had a good thing to it. And then, of course, we heard Mandigold was going to be writing it, and that was recent. That was literally the day Han Solo film came out. We were hearing that James Mandigold was going to be writing for it, the new scripts and the new treatments and everything, so everyone got all pepped up, and then literally just weeks later, Collider ran their story. And this whole thing, again, fell apart after the dismal performance. EW, and I should have had it here in the show notes, and I apologize to everyone, that EW, I think Anthony Bresican had a follow-up to this story talking about what the treatments actually were, or was supposed to be for this new film, that it was really going to be a Hunter-type movie with Bosk and the other outfits that was going to be hanging around. So a lot of those bounty hunters we saw in Empire Strikes Back were going to be back for this movie.
And it's interesting because there was a series of books in the Legends universe which were called the Bounty Hunter Wars, which were Dengar rescuing Boba Fett from the pit, and then like all kinds of shenanigans. And so they had all these bounty hunters in it, and
I still think we're going to see these. I don't know if we'll see Boba Fett in The Mandalorian, but I bet you anything we're going to see Bosk and IG-88. We're going to see these like other bounty hunters, because these guys could technically be older, right? They're not like Human Lives or anything else. They can go longer. They're big fan favorites, and to see them sort of this like seedy underworld type running around would be still kind of cool, and you could still have them. So
Boba Fett is coming. I'm putting money on it. We can take bets now if you want. I'm
Good.
telling you,
I like
he's
this.
coming.
Good.
I like this.
Yeah.
I like it when people take guesses. I'm still up for the Brolin thing, right? The Mandalorian is Brolin. I'm probably 99.9% wrong, but I'm still putting money down on it.
That too.
Like
yeah,
I want to dream.
Can I get a parlay of these two?
Yeah.
Yeah, it just, this is part of the fun, right? A running site is speculating and figuring out who could be. And I'm surprised it doesn't happen a lot on Star Wars Twitter and other places where people are not trying to guess the Mandalorian. I see nobody talking about it. I don't see any of the trades going after it. How is this role still a secret? Because whoever this main actor is walking on set, how is the cafeteria guy or the catering guy not going, hey, look, Josh Brolin? You know what I mean? How does that not leak or whatever else?
I think.
Well, he's on set, obviously. So it's like, is he an unknown?
The trades know, and they're holding out for something. That's my guess, is that the trades know they're holding out for something better, like they're going to get a scoop or an exclusive, or, like there's no way Anthony Breznican doesn't know. And on top of that, I would also say we keep on thinking it's going to be a big name. I'm not 100% sure it's going to be a big name. So if it's not a big name and they're holding on to it for some reason, that would make more sense to me.
I'm still going with my guy from the Vikings. That's my guess.
He's an okay actor though.
He's a big dude. I'm just thinking.
Big dude.
Which guy from Vikings?
The Matt Ragnar's son, his oldest son, the big dude
guy. Yeah.
Not
that great of an actor though.
That.
I mean, he's okay. Yeah. I don't listen. This is Star Wars. I don't think they pick an unknown anymore. Like besides Rey, of course, because that's always been like the kind of hallmark for it. Because if it's like a Jedi, it has to be someone you really don't want to know, and you want someone completely new. But for the Mandalorian, I don't think so. I think they're going to go after someone who's new and hot, or just hot in general. Not looks. I mean, talking about in Hollywood right now, like they're. I would also
like hot, like a hot look.
Well, that happens. It's Hollywood. It's not going to be like
Yeah, it's not going to be ugly.
It's not going to be Gilbert Gottfried under the armor or anything. I wish.
What about the guy from Sons of Anarchy? What's he doing now? The guy who played Jax. He was in a couple movies that
I was not a good actor.
I would think
I love him. I love him.
He could play a good bounty hunter type, but the problem is he doesn't fit that body frame. Oh, actually, he's a pretty big guy.
He's a pretty big dude.
Because I remember he was in that Excalibur movie. He was.
That actually was not bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, now I have to go look at man pictures and look at their waist down. My wife's like, why are you looking at guys' waist and legs? I'm like, honey, please, business. This is Star Wars.
I think it's going to be like like a not A-list movie actor, but like an A-list TV B-list movie actor, right? Like I think that's the caliber we're going at. Like Josh Brolin would be a little too hot, I think.
Yeah, and it wouldn't be surprising to see someone from like Game of Thrones get recycled in, saying they've sort of dipped into that casting a lot.
Well, this is in LA, so it's like, you know what I mean. If you're going by past performance, Lucasfilm always seems to pick up somebody who's hot in the moment. As soon as somebody gets hot in the moment, that's who they're grabbing. Oscar Isaac, you name it, everyone from the cast, from the new things, they're all hot when they picked them up. It wasn't like they picked somebody who wasn't like really known, but even what's his face playing Finn was even on the way up with some of his past performances, before the movie. So it's like they tend to do that. I mean, could this be somebody new? Yeah.
So you're saying it's The Rock? You're saying The Rock is the Mandalorian?
But see that. No, but let me tell you something. Oh, but the body styles are very similar too. And remember, I said it would be nice for The Rock, or at least he's somewhat close in geographic thing to New Zealand, right? At least for the traditional Mandalorian. I mean, it would be nice for at least that. But yeah, I mean, honestly, if it is somebody from New Zealand, I would be thrilled. I think that would be cool as hell for, just to keep up the continuity for the, but whatever. We'll see what happens.
I would love it to be a person of color, but don't hold your breath. Like, I would.
I mean, I'm hoping it would be nice. I think it would be cool. No, you're cool, Liz. I think it would be great. But it's just like, I'm just surprised that whoever got this would have an instant big day in clicks. I mean, you're just going to have it, right? I can understand the EWs of the world, Hollywood Reporter. They're not looking to piss off Lucasfilm and Jon Favreau, right? Because it's not just Disney and Lucasfilm, it's Jon Favreau, right? That's the last guy you want to get on the bad side with. But come on, there's a lot of outfits out there, mid-tier. These guys are even better. They're the ones who pay off doormen. They're the ones who are paying off maids that come in and service people who see the people on set who talk, right?
Where's El Miambe?
Yeah, I know. These are these mid-tier guys who are damn good at getting these scoops. And I'm just shocked that this position hasn't come out yet. But, I think this whole project makes sense. Would I rather have a live-action Mandalorian-focused series, or would I have one film with Boba Fett? Give me the Mandalorian series. And this is a guy who's not particularly happy with Mandalorians, right? I'm just not. They have done nothing for me, never have, and I'm hoping to change. I'm hoping this will change that, and I think it will. One movie won't do that with me. I think a live-action series going on for 2 or 3 years, that will definitely do it for me, probably in a big way. So it's like, it makes sense. I think whether it was Kathy's decision or Iger's decision or just a collaboration of both, maybe. Obviously, it had to be from Iger because this was on the docket and Kathy controls the docket. If it got changed, then either Kathy immediately pivoted on her own, which is kudos to her, or maybe it was just a collaborative thing with Disney, right? Like, hey, we thought about it. It's not going to work.
Or we need to slow down and we already have a million movies in production, right? Like we've got episode 9 coming out, and we've got the new, the Rian Johnson series, and we've got the Game of Thrones guys series. And like, maybe we're just, maybe it was just overload.
This is, it can be, but this is where things get interesting because remember, I did this piece for the feature for the Post back in July, where I did a real relative roadmap of where things could fit because every movie project takes between 3 to 4 years. And if you just map out what we do know, what projects are on the docket, like Benioff and Weiss, the Game of Thrones guys, doing their now trilogy, which everyone thought was going to be a series of movies. Now it's looking like they're going to get a trilogy. And, of course, Rian Johnson's trilogy. And then we had the Obi-Wan film that had some credible sources that was going to go on in Pinewood after Episode 9 was done shooting. And then the Boba Fett film with Manigault. If you look at the timing between now and, let's say, I think it was like 2021 or 2022, there has to be a movie that slots in after Episode 9 because Rian Johnson cannot possibly be ready with his first trilogy film after 9. So 9 will come out next December. What movie's going to come out right after that? The very following December. I mean, that's only 2 years from now.
Or they let it sit.
No, but let me think about it. So we have about a year from now that Episode 9 is going to come out. There has to be another movie the next December. Yeah. That's 2 years from now, and nothing is shot yet. Yeah. Think about that. So it's like, what movies? I still think the Obi-Wan film is still on the docket. I do. Because it takes 3 years to make a movie. 4 if you're doing new treatments. So if a movie has to shoot as soon as 9 is done, in order so you have 1 year of shooting, and then you have a year of post-production, which is the year the movie actually comes out in December. So if you're looking between, so let's say Episode 9 finishes on Christmas. Let's just say, for example, this Christmas. That means this next movie can shoot all next year. And then I'm sorry. Yeah, it finishes shooting this December. Next year, you can shoot the movie. Then episode 9 comes out that December. Then the next year after episode 9 is the post-production year. That's when you start doing all your special effects and you get ready for the movie that next December. That means whatever movie, and our friends over at Fantha Tracks had that story, that Obi-Wan was slated at Pinewood to start filming right after episode 9. That things were starting to get built, the space was leased, and then we got the story from Collider that talked about, and one of the tricks for that story was, and that's the thing that sticks in the edge of my brain, is that leased spaces at Pinewood were now being given up. So spaces that were earmarked right after 9 have now been freed up. Like the leases are like, nope, we don't need it anymore. And that's what got everyone saying all the spinoffs are canceled. But then that leaves a hole because Rian Johnson, there is no way Rian Johnson is going to be ready, or maybe he's filming a film right now outside of Star Wars.
Well, and the thing
or they
is,
leave the hole. They, you know what I mean? Like they
a whole year 9, of no movie.
Yeah,
it's
I think at least you're ending this saga, and if you want to refresh to have people not think that Luke is coming back or that Rey is coming back or that Kylo is coming back, like if you're truly shutting down those characters for a while, and if you're resetting and thinking about what does Star Wars look like minus any of the Skywalker saga at all, you're cutting all that out. No more Skywalker saga. You let that sit for a while and you like set a new plan and you get people used to new characters and you maybe have a new show and you have new books, right? Like I wouldn't be surprised if they took that year to reset.
And
at least a year.
And there's other options too. I mean, they've got the 3D releases they never released that are sitting there. They could always do a saga re-release at some point in the theaters through the course of a year. I mean, there's ways they can exploit it to make money in theaters without having a new film come out. I also think this is another reason they should have animated features in production. And I think they should do an animated feature alternating in with the live action features, but that's just me. But
and and the streaming service is going to be up. So you forget that they're not doing any content that's going to be theatrically released maybe, but TV's a much shorter timeline. They could crank out another show or two during that period that's live and that keeps Star Wars in people's brains and that's still generating them money, right?
But this is where the hang up is for me. If Star Wars stays in December, because they get real skittish about coming out in April or the summer months for what happened with Solo. Because the biggest reason I think for Solo was not only the marketing, is when it came out, right? Going up against the Marvel movies and all the other big hits that come out. If they stick to December, then we're not taking a year off. We're taking 2 years off, right? So episode 9 comes out next year, 2019. If they do nothing that next year for that next December, you have to wait till a whole next December.
Yeah.
Or do they go for the summer? Right? Now, you're right about building up anticipation because the rumor is that's exactly the reason why Iger decided to put Solo in the early months of April and May, because he wanted to give episode 9 a year and a half of buildup. Like that was the reasoning behind them moving it or sticking to that date. And it bit them in the ass for it. Like they should have came out with Han Solo this December. Like right now, if we're talking about the run up to Han Solo, we would be hyped right now for Han Solo. We really would have been. And I think everyone knows that. That's the lesson learned. If they do the same thing, we're not talking about a year off. We're talking about 2 years off. And the thing is, if you're Disney and you know you're making a movie and you're going to make bank, do you really go a year without making bank? I mean, you're going to make money.
Well, the nice thing for Disney is that it's not like this is the only thing they own, right? Like they can own December. I mean, look what they're doing this December. They're putting out their Mary Poppins movie in December. If you don't think that thing's going to make a crap ton of money, that's going to be astronomical amounts of money. And so I think like they are going to be smart with the properties that they have in terms of filling that space and saying, look, Star Wars may not own December anymore, but Disney owns December. We own December. Back off. We're the family holiday season. You know what I mean? And if they hold on to that spot, and they've already started moving things around, like they just moved Frozen around in December, I think. I think that's December 2019 or 2020. They've moved it around. So like they know how to make December work. And I think they are just saying, maybe Kathleen Kennedy is saying, okay, give us 1 more year. What do we got that you could put in? And they're figuring it out. Like, when does that Jungle Cruise movie come out with The Rock? Put that in at Christmas.
They pushed that back too, I think, like 6 months to a year.
It did.
So and Warner Brothers pushes back Wonder Woman to the summer to get to a release date they like better to try to make an economic advantage. That all the studios all do this stuff. But like, if we're assuming that Obi-Wan will go into production, I mean, Ewan McGregor just signed on for the villain in the Birds
I
of
was
Prey
just going
movie.
to say that.
Which we
yeah.
found out
like-
today. Which we found out today. So,
These actors don't sit around waiting; they have other projects they're going to sign on to and get working.
I don't know.
I don't think we're going to see a movie for a while after Episode 9.
The nice thing, at least
I have
for
a hard
Ewan
time with
McGregor,
that.
is that they crank out those DC movies.
Yeah.
Those DC movies get cranked out. He'll be done with that
in months.
6 months. Yeah.
Not even like 3 months of filming, it'll be done. I'm just trying to, because you got to imagine. So if the Obi-Wan film, guys, has been one of the first treatments that ever, as soon as Disney bought Lucasfilm, everyone knew it was the first thing that everybody was pitching. So the treatments for this movie have been going on forever. We're talking concept art. We're talking everything, the story, the whole bit. I honestly think, if I had to put money down, I think they are going to do the Obi-Wan film. And I think it's going to film right after. I think they're going to get it in and get it done and get it in the next year after. It just, to me, it's probably too good of a film. Ewan McGregor will be such a hit. Everyone will come see it. It's not like a young Han Solo with a new actor that most people don't know. It's Ewan McGregor. People will come back to see him. And if they do a good enough story to tie it in, which may have to do with Rey, because remember, that was the biggest thing Anthony Bresnikan talked about a year ago, or a year and a half ago in several podcasts, was the fact that an Obi-Wan film hasn't come out yet because it may have to come out after the saga's done. And he hinted about Rey's lineage and all that other stuff. But personally, for me, I think that if you were going to get rid of one movie, the Fett movie would have been it. You would have kept Obi-Wan. Because if it's already this far gone, you're already leased space at Pinewood, you're all ready to go. Literally, you're getting ready to go. Why not? You're right, get it filmed out and get it, and you have a movie in place for 2020. And I don't know. I guess we'll see. But, the Fett movie being gone, I think that one you can get away with. And the thing is, Manigault still had a right to think, so I still think there was going to be time. You know what I mean? There was always going to be time. I guess we lost Liz, but she'll pop in soon. Pete, did you have anything else to add before we move on?
I like Boba Fett. I'm sad that there's not going to be a movie about him, but I hope he shows up in The Mandalorian. And I'm not really that hyped for an Obi-Wan movie, because if it's going to be in the period after Revenge of the Sith and before A New Hope, it's just like, I feel like I've already seen versions of that story multiple times, and I'm not really that interested in seeing that when we have all kinds of other stories we could be telling.
And that's what worries me, is because I think everybody in the fandom has that kind of opinion. I do too. It's like, I think when I ask regular casual fans, like my coworkers and stuff, they all say the same thing. Like, why do I care about Obi-Wan living in the desert? Because they think that's all he's done is babysit Luke. And essentially that's what he's done. I mean, you could probably come up with I'm sure the storytellers can come up with something interesting, but at the end of the day, it's still him babysitting on Tatooine. So, we'll see how that goes out. Okay, guys, so second story. Of course, is Lego Star. There was a new animation series announced, of course, this week for the kiddies. I mean, I'm looking forward to it too. Is Lego Star Wars All Stars, a new animated adventure series that spans all Star Wars eras, will debut Monday, October 29th on Disney XD, YouTube, and Disney Now. Comprised of 8 shorts and 4.5-hour episodes, the series features Lego versions of the latest heroes and villains of the Star Wars galaxy, alongside iconic characters including Kylo Ren, R2-D2, young Han, Chewie, young Lando, BB-8, and General Leia. So, nice new series for the kids. Right up there with a Freemaker Adventure sort of thing. Not, so I'm looking forward to it. Just one other thing. I mean, projects are coming, and that's nice, right? It's nice they're filling out the live stream service, which I'm sure is going to hit next year with them, as another thing. What did you think, Pete, when you heard about it?
I didn't really read the story because I watched the Freemaker Adventures. I've watched all the other Lego stuff. It's not really for me. I don't like the sort of stupid Lego humor they build into the shows where bricks fall apart and go everywhere.
I love it.
And I like some of the writing think the writing was actually really good in the Freemaker Adventures.
It was,
especially with some of the Imperial characters. It was hilarious.
Grimal the Hutt is my spirit animal.
But it'd be so much better. For me, it'd be so much better if that show was actually more traditional animation, more canonical. Yeah. Because I really like the story, but it's just kind of it takes me out of it whenever I see the really stupid Lego stuff. So it's not for me. It's not. I'm not the target demo. Kids love it. For me, it's just another show I can watch with the kids. So. Interesting enough. Liz, I don't know if you heard the news about the new animation series, the Star Wars All Stars. Did you hear about that this week?
I briefly saw it on Twitter, but I haven't heard much about it.
Gotcha. Yeah, but it'd be a fun series to see with the kids. I'm sure it's going to be hilarious. But it's interesting. It's going to have all these different characters again, on all different eras too. So Kylo Ren, young Lando, right, and young Han. So it'll be interesting to see. And I doubt it's going to be canonical. I don't know how to say that word. Anyway, Okay, guys. So that's it pretty much for the news. The last week there really wasn't a whole lot going on. Kind of quiet on the spoiler front. There was nothing really for The Mandalorian. Things all wrapped up and got shut tight. Episode 9 is continuing shooting. Again, there's nothing anywhere. Mid-tiers, it's like either people don't care anymore or they're really buttoning up things tight at Lucasfilm. But it usually happens. Everyone knows this time when the shooting happens, people tend to be quiet because it's kind of easy, or it's dangerous for people to leak stuff because it's easy to place who was where when the stuff comes out. So usually the leaks kind of follow the shooting. So once the principal photography is over, that's usually when the stuff starts rolling out and we start hearing about stuff. But we'll wait for that.
Yeah, and there's been a little bit of who's been on location in Jordan, and there was the picture that John Boyega tweeted of him and Oscar Isaac together. So presumably Oscar Isaac's out there, which doesn't surprise me. I think from what we saw from the last photos, they were shooting together. But it seems again, everything is so late and after the fact. Mostly, I think, for me at least, I've been trying to figure out tracking on where has Adam Driver been. Because it seems like he has been either MIA for shooting or kind of shooting off on his, he hasn't been, I think, with the main cast, which is interesting. At least last time, him and Daisy were on set a lot together, so it was easy to find them. And now it seems like Daisy's not with either of the groups, and I don't know. So I'm on Daisy and Adam watch. So if anybody hears where they are,
well, I think from what I pieced together, and there's been some decent reporting on this from normal people. So I've been from regular folks. I've been seeing stuff where Adam Driver is in England, and then somebody rumored that he was in the Mideast. I don't know necessarily if he was in Jordan, but then we know absolutely that Oscar Isaac showed up in Jordan with why am I forgetting Finn's name? The actor's name, John Boyega. That they showed up in an Instagram pic for John Boyega's birthday. So, and we of course heard earlier rumors that Daisy Ridley was in Jordan, right? That's when we got those first pictures of Jordan on set. And someone said they had seen her. And then someone else had also seen her in the Mideast as well. And it's some bazaar or something like that where they saw her. So it'll be interesting that this set, whatever's happening in Jordan, and of course, we've all talked about whether it could be Jakku or Tatooine or Jeddah, right? It's that same kind of landscape and that we've all seen. We just don't know where. But they all of them being there now. And there's also been the rumor of massive pyrotechnics that have been happening in the Jordan sets, not necessarily the one we saw pictures for, but other sets that have been within that location. My guess is this is probably a final battle. Yeah, I mean, if everybody's together, you can pretty much bet it's probably a battle going on or something of that effect, especially if there's pyrotechnics followed suit. My initial assumption was it was probably Jakku, and they were filming the Battle of Jakku, as a flashback or something, just to kind of give some sort of, background to it. But maybe this is just the end fight that we see. And there's going to be one. Right?
Or the opening, right? An Empire-style opening.
Sure. Absolutely.
Because you got to remember that they're going to have to do something. I mean, I said this when we first started talking about it, but they need a massive time jump, and they also need an event to kick us back into it, right? Yeah. So, it both has to be far enough in advance, far enough in the future that we're traveling, but also there needs to be an inciting incident that's dramatic enough to bring us back into the story. And what would be more dramatic than going back to Jakku and having a battle happen there, right?
It would be great if, my personal wish is I would love to see Rey go back to Jakku and sort of, because Chuck Wendig wrote such a great mystery about Jakku and really got me totally involved with the mystery of the planet during the second book, right, in Empire's End, that Jakku wasn't just some backwater junkyard. It had a purpose, a very mysterious, very Lost-esque purpose, with the underground base, with the machines that can travel into unknown regions and basically map their way to the unknown regions. It's almost like a toll booth way to get there, and with directions. And I doubt they'll go through that whole spin again. But I don't know if it's that or Tatooine. You go back where it all started. But that's the kind of thing that JJ tends to do. What do you think, Pete?
If it's a closing scene, it's Tatooine, because it would be the saga began here, the saga is going to end here type of thing. I don't really care about Jakku, even though I thought that the Emperor's secret lair base there was kind of a cool touch. I don't think we're going to go into that.
It was nice for a novel.
Yeah, I'm just kind of over desert planets in general. They're just kind of.
I'm kind of. There's something weird about me. I love desert movies. I caught myself catching The Mummy again, last weekend, and if someone put me on a deserted island with only one movie, I take The Mummy with me. Right, with Brendan Fraser. I love that movie.
I love Brendan Fraser. He's so underrated.
And and not only that, it's for me, even other fantastic movies in deserts. To me, just the desert on film is romantic, and I love to see it. And some of these shots are just amazing. If they went back to Tatooine, great. The whole point for me, though, it's almost even more so than Jakku. Why go back to Tatooine? What's there? I mean, we know there's nothing there.
Yeah.
You know?
The thing I would love to see, and I don't think it's going to happen, and we got it a little bit with Canto Bight, and I think the closest we got to it was obviously in the prequels, but like a built-up planet. Like, not all these planets are deserted, right? Like, and we got it a little bit with Naboo, but like, what would a really, really cool built-up space planet that's not all like CG like Coruscant was, but like, what would a really built-up space planet look like? And we saw it a little bit with the Casino Planet, but like, I feel like that's been a lost opportunity that I would like to see.
I kind of miss Coruscant. I really hope we get a little smidge of Coruscant in this movie. I don't know how, but it would be nice. I kind of miss it because there was a nice little industrial metal space theme that went with it. Everything else is so natural, and so everything. The palette colors are always very natural. The browns and the greens and all that. It's like this is supposed to be Space Wars. I want to see metal. Well, I want to see cold, sort of. You know what I mean? Instead of just seeing a Star Destroyer every time.
Yeah, and so here's the thing, like, we've seen lots of lightsaber battles in the desert. We've seen lightsaber battles in the snow. We've seen lightsaber battles in the lava. How are we not seeing lightsaber battles, say, with waterfalls involved and, like, crazy cliffs and scenes like that?
Jungles, yeah.
Like,
I think the prequels are so underrated for this. Like, Geonosis was one of my favorite planets, and like such a cool like color palette, and I mean deserty but not, right? Like, it was like very orange and very vibrant. It felt almost like clay, like earthy, right? And then we got that a little bit with the Wookiee home planet, so Kashyyyk, when we saw that briefly. But like, let's see other things. And I understand that they did it in The Force Awakens as like a callback to the original trilogy, right? But like, now JJ, like, play, you can do that. You can do different things. So I am kind of bummed if we only see Tatooine or Jakku.
Well, we know we always look at these traditional regions,
right?
My God. Like we have on Earth. Is there any region we haven't touched yet? I mean, we've had Hoth, we've had like the Antarctic scape, we've had the desert scape, we've had the jungle scape. We've had the cityscape, like super cityscape, right? What else is missing? Like the Himalayas, like the Alps, right? Big mountains with snow capped. I mean, what else has been missing that we haven't seen in Star Wars? There's not many regions left. I mean, it's nice when you go. I mean, I can imagine these guys when they sit back, and this whole team when they sit back at the table and they go, where in the world is truly exotic that we love to go? I love where they went with Rogue One, where they went to Iceland in that beautiful green grass. With the color palette there was absolutely stunningly gorgeous. That to me was a fantastic place to go shoot, especially with the black sand, backdrop with that green grass was beautiful. It's one of the best palettes I think I love in all of Star Wars. That happens early on. But, how this is going to work out with 9, and it's nice to hear that. I mean, before we used to get airport watch. We used to get people saying they see these celebrities at the airport and we would get pictures and they're all like, Adam Driver would be hiding his head, trying to act like really, dude, you're going to try to hide you like 6'4" like me. You're not going to hide your face. And then, that's the thing when you're filming in England or Ireland or anything. There's a limited number of airports they're flying into, so they can just like camp out there and wait for them to show up. But even it was great. Remember, you would have Adam Driver hide himself and Daisy Ridley, and then you have Mark Hamill like all smiling for the camera, showing the big guns, like, guess who's here, baby? Like, completely not shying away at all from being in the cameras, and it's just like, these guys are already apparently shooting on location, and we got nothing. We got not one shot from somebody at an airport. I'm like, wow. Yeah, and it's interesting, like, if Adam Driver and, say, Domhnall Gleeson, they're doing a lot of, like, they could be doing a lot of soundstage stuff. They're doing a lot of like stuff on starships and different things. They might not be actually out on location a lot for some of their filming. So sure. Well, we did get, at least I know we got, I think the only shots we got so far of 2 actors on location filming was in England, and it was Domhnall Gleeson and Daisy Ridley. Like, they were sitting in the city streets meeting everybody. I think that's the only one we got so far. But it's amazing to me that we don't have pictures of anybody at an airport coming in yet, and the location has started. This one being out in the desert, I can understand why there's not a lot of paparazzi. There's not a lot of spy shots like it was when they were filming in Dubrovnik, which of course was fantastic for us because there was just eyes and cameras everywhere, and we got like a daily fix on what was happening, which was a lot of fun. You're saying the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan is not letting paparazzi run loose all over the countryside? Well, I mean, is that what you're saying, Max? I mean, it's in the desert, so it's not like you're going to get, you know what I mean? It's not going to get some Bedouin in a camel or something like that going, oh, well, I mean, You can make a lot of money if you take some shots of this stuff. Like, you're crazy not to. You know what I mean? If you're out there, you got nothing better to do, and you see Star Wars in your backyard, take pictures, sell that stuff. TMZ will pay. I will pay. Like, you know what I mean? Like, be crazy, people. This is a money-making opportunity. But it's, I wonder, so it's like, we know they're filming in England, at least for one planet, because we saw pictures of Isaac and Boyega out in that grass field, right, with some of the new actors.
Yeah.
There's rumors of Jordan. There's rumors of Jordan. So that leaves usually a third planet, a third location that they film at. If they always go by the rule of three, there's one other place that they have to film at. Hopefully it's a place that's more populated and we'll get pictures. But, I really, with all the rumors going around of, JJ's sort of still writing the script as they go. They're improvising a lot of scenes, which is fun and it's dynamic. I'm really wondering how he's going to, this has got to be a monumental task. How are you going to wrap up this saga? It's one thing to do a story in the middle of the saga. It's another thing to wrap it up. This is going to be a huge undertaking. And for story, they got the major beats down. They all have agreed to somewhere on a table. They've all agreed, like, this is going to be the major beats. This is how we're ending the saga. The question remains, though, is, are we going to see the tradition like we always see? Bad guys get a super weapon. Good guys end it all. The end. Right? Is it going to be that, or is it going to be something different? I think it might be different than that. But again, rumors are circulating, which are crap rumors. And that's the thing this time around that gets me, is the rumor mill has really branched off to this second, highway of information. We have our traditional Star Wars fan sites like me, Star Wars Underworld, Making Star Wars, that we vet the information to a certain degree, and we're confident. And then we have YouTube Star Wars with guys like Zero who come out with garbage. And for some reason, middle tier trades used to kind of pick up some of their stuff, but now this stuff is getting reported in the top tier magazines. This stuff is getting printed out in Esquire magazine. These ridiculous theories. And it's funny, so I'm reading them in Esquire going, I haven't heard anything like that. Because it's garbage. It's all garbage. And of course, the big garbage rumor this week was, the Force Order's building another super weapon that's a planet killer that destroys planets.
That's just an educated guess, isn't it? You better know.
Really. Yeah, exactly. Don't strain yourself on that one, right?
There was a couple of things I was going to say. One, there were those rumors going around, and who knows if they were actually true, and they could have come from one of these crap sites. So I shouldn't say crap sites.
Sure.
They're crap sites.
No, say crap sites.
Yeah. But that they had a permit out, or they had asked for permission to film in Italy, and they were waiting to hear on it. That was a thing that I was hearing for a while, that Italy was being named as a location. Who knows if that's true or not, but that could potentially be one. And I think that would also be one that we could definitely get paparazzi shots from. So I'd be excited about that. But another thing I was going to say is, I think they would be smart to, in here, instead of making it more like the Return of the Jedi ending, to do it a little bit more Revenge of the Sith style, where it's more about power, political power, and less about Kylo Ren is unstable, and the fact that he is in charge, in fact, makes a really interesting point of who is going to control this galaxy and what is it going to look like. And so I feel like they have a really good opportunity to not make this about a super weapon and more make it about kind of intriguing, I shouldn't say political power. Yeah. It's
got to be about people. It was funny, Chuck Wendig's latest book that he wrote about A Fine Story, which talks about storytelling, and he brings up the prequels as an example of how the prequels sort of didn't work for a lot of people, because it was only in the last film that you really delved into characters, their story. Right, it wasn't about the politics and the whole setup. It was about their story. I think you kind of got to do the same thing here, even though it's so tempting, because Kylo's now taking over probably most of the known galaxy now with the First Order. It still has to be a very human story. But the funny thing is I'm looking at these pictures, what does Rey really want? Does Rey really want to be a Jedi and start the Jedi all over again? Is she just looking to defeat Kylo and sort of wrap Luke's wishes that all of it should end? Right, which of course brings us to our topic that we want to talk about, will the Jedi end after Episode 9? Yeah. And, of course, Boyega is going to be, now he's in the fight for the rebellion, so his is pretty easy to figure out. Oscar's easy to figure out. It really comes down to, and it's not even Kylo Ren, because he just wants to take over the galaxy and be the most powerful thing out there. The real story for me is Rey. What does Rey want? I still don't know. After 2 movies, I don't know what she wants.
I would not even say that Kylo Ren really wants, and this is where I come back to I was not explaining myself well, but the politics part is that I would say Kylo Ren doesn't even want to take over the galaxy as much. He is so fearful of things being taken from him that he needs to grasp as much as he can in order to not have things pulled out underneath him, right? Like, for me, Kylo Ren is more about he needs the power because otherwise it will be taken from him, right? He needs that validation. He needs that power. He needed what Snoke had because he knew that Snoke could turn on him and choose someone else, right? Like, he needed what Luke had because Luke turned on him. So, but I feel like I totally agree with you. I don't know what Rey wants in that. And that is, I feel like, a fundamental flaw with this saga in a way that we never saw with Luke. We knew Luke was pretty basic, right? Like, but we knew what Luke wanted. And
very
we knew,
simply.
Yeah. And it was very simple. And I feel like it's not a bad thing to have somebody who has complex desires or who's figuring out their desires, but you should know it, and the audience should know it. Even if Rey doesn't know it, we should know what Rey wants.
It's almost like the second movie came out and just ignored her. Go ahead, Pete.
Well, it's the motivation they set up for Rey is a search for belonging and a search for her family.
Yeah.
And the second film addresses it that she's never going to find her family because they abandoned her. They don't care about her, basically. And she's on her own, and she has to figure out
but now what?
Who she is in this. Yeah, and that's the thing. And now what? They don't really, there's not a good setup for where she's going from there. And the problem is that the most interesting character is the villain, not the protagonist.
Yeah.
Kylo Ren is the best character in the trilogy. He's the most developed character. He may have conflicting emotions. He may have conflicting motivations, but we've spent the most time actually dealing with those. And in episode 9, I think we're going to see the fact that there's a hole in his soul, and this power does not actually fill that hole. And he may be in control of the galaxy, but he's still a broken person, and he's not satisfied by that. And there's going to be either bad outcomes one way or the other for him. I personally think there's going to be conflict with him and Hux in this movie based on control of the Empire and his instability.
Oh, yeah. I think honestly that's going to be the big danger he has, is Hux is going to try to scheme his way into his spot.
That's more interesting to me than the Rey story, because where are we going with the Rey story right now?
Well,
I'd rather see more of Kylo, because what they're offering me with Rey so far.
So here's a question.
There's not enough.
Here's a question for you two: Is the elevation of Kylo's story more important than Rey's because of Adam Driver's incredible acting, or because it was written that way in The Last Jedi?
Both.
A little bit of both, probably.
I think it's both, and also I feel like I have some really interesting questions about where Kylo Ren goes from here. Like, what do you get? Like, what do you want when you get everything you want? Like you said, Pete, like when you get all the power that you want, and then that's not enough. What do you want next? Or when you're so scared of losing it all, how are you going to grasp for more? And those are really, really interesting questions. But the problem is going to be that in order to have a satisfying conclusion to this movie, something has to happen to the villain. And if the villain is the character that we identify with the most, how does an end become satisfying that resolves that storyline in a way that's neat?
And
right?
that's where we all come back to that. It seemed like The Last Jedi is like the perfect third film of a trilogy. And what gets interesting about this that doesn't flow right with me is Kylo wants to be better than his grandfather, or just as good. Well, guess what? You are now. You killed Snoke. Vader couldn't kill Palpatine. It's all yours now, baby. You've achieved it. You faked it till you made it. Literally. You faked it and killed him and made it. And it's like, now what do you want? You going to take over the galaxy? He's going to have that. There's no way the Resistance could ever fight the First Order right now, we're at least where we left the story off. So what is left for him? Like I said, this is like a perfect intro for the third. I think there is going to be struggle with Domhnall Gleeson's character, with Hux, because I've heard rumors about that before The Last Jedi came out, that was going to be an interesting dynamic. In fact, when the rumors that I was hearing in back channels, we thought it was going to happen in The Last Jedi. Now I'm bringing in one of the rumors we heard are really for the next film. But then again, there's been a lot of rewriting since then. So, but it's like when you look at the motivations between Rey, and we don't know what she wants. Well, she wants her parents, but now she's convinced herself they're nothing. Or at least Kylo tried to convince her that. Right? So she's not hunting for mom and dad anymore. She's found acceptance with Leia in this new group. But now what does she want next? It's like she was totally kind of ignored in this second. And what gets me is it's almost like Star Wars Rebels all over again. This whole series was started and pitched as a new female Jedi who comes about, and this is her story. And that's what I loved about The Force Awakens, because it was her story. Everything revolved around Rey. Everything did. And that's what I bought into. That's what I bought into it completely. And that's one of my hangups with The Last Jedi is I didn't get that. I got her seeking out Luke and just, I mean, it was nice for the parts that she had, but it was like it wasn't about her. Now, I understand the bad guys have to win. They got to win big. But you know what I mean? So it's like...
sorry.
No, go ahead, Pete.
I was going to say...
Or Liz.
No, go Pete. I was also going to say, this comes back to a little bit the conversation that we were trying to have about what happens to the Jedi next. And I feel like in The Last Jedi, it was set up that Rey, I mean, in The Force Awakens, it was set up that Rey was going to train to be a Jedi. But the question to me, like, that was never, like, why? That didn't make sense for her motivations. There was no reason for her to do it. There was no Obi-Wan telling her that this was the next step in her journey, right? Like, it was just, she went off and did it. And I actually feel like that was kind of their fundamental flaw. And my question coming back to, like, what happens to the Jedi after this is the Jedi are so much less relevant because, like, Rey didn't have to be a Jedi. And in fact, it was so little a part of her character. And she wasn't striving to be her parents the same way Luke was. So, like, I don't know. In reflection on it, as much as I want a female Jedi, they didn't set up Rey to have the best story of a female Jedi, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, that's like the thing. Okay, so the thing is that if you're not going to develop Rey's motivation strongly or character, some stuff, especially in The Last Jedi, what they had with Luke was you have the sort of story cheat. His dad was a Jedi. There's a reason for him to continue that path, like you're saying. There's no reason for Rey to continue this path in that way. There's no story cheat. So you've got to develop what her motivation is going forward. So she's got the Jedi text. She stole the Jedi text. She talked to Luke, traded with Luke a little while. But what is she going to build an army to try to take down the First Order? Is she going to try to make an order of monks? Is she just going to take the knowledge and do something else? Because Lucasfilm wants Jedi for marketing reasons, of course. They're not going to give up the Jedi brand. But why does she want to be a Jedi? Why? What? Like, she grew up hearing some legends, but that's not really. It's not enough of a story hook for her motivation going forward. We need more.
Her initial motivation in The Last Jedi, I liked. Something's happening to me inside. No different than someone that gets cancer, right? Something's changed in me, and I need answers. I don't understand what's going on. I don't understand the way I feel. Brilliant part, right, in The Last Jedi, when she first meets Luke, Luke gives her a chance to understand, because now Luke knows that she's special, right? It's all happening in the tree, the Force tree. Great moment. But it's after that point, and this is the part I fundamentally have some small issue with The Last Jedi. You have Luke with solid reasoning on why the Jedi should end, right? Because the second you weaponize the Force, and I don't care what anybody says, a Jedi is weaponizing the Force. You're using it, granted for defense, but you're weaponizing it. You're using it to harm, to save people, but you're still using it for harm. And he's realizing that it's just this balance. It's just better for there to be none, just to end it all. And it's a great argument. And then here you have Rian Johnson writing a fantastic argument supporting that, right? Kill the past. Let it go. Kill it all. Just end it all. And you could see Ryan's pushing this kind of narrative that it all has to end. We have to start breaking out to something new for the overall saga. And we all are on board with that. That's what the reason why his new trilogy is coming. But yet here's his main protagonist in the story. And Rey but we need the Jedi back. We need to fight back. And then she convinces Luke at the end that the Jedi won't end. And it's like, wait a minute, hold on a second. You just spent the whole film telling me that it's a bad idea. Just let it go. The bad will end somehow. But it needs to all go away. And then Kylo's pushing it more too. He's telling her, let go. Everyone's saying it. And this is Rian Johnson's narrative. But then his protagonist is against the narrative. And at the very end, she steals the books. It's like, I'm going to keep doing this and I'm going to be a Jedi. And then Luke's at the end going, I am too. And it's like, what? No, wait. Because I subscribed to this before the movie even came out. That the whole idea of the Jedi was flawed. I mean, that's the reason why Anakin was born in the first place. Right? it's the whole reason for the Skywalker saga. And I love how this has changed with marketing. This film is going to be marketed as the end of the Skywalker saga, which doesn't make it a Rey story. It makes it a Kylo Ren story, right? And that's the kind of thing that flipped on this whole thing. It's that Rey was initially the main protagonist. Everyone, this is the future. And now it's like, nope, we want to end it all, wrap it and cut it short. So the question we have for tonight is, even when this saga is done, the Skywalker story is done. Let's say Kylo dies, Skywalker ends, whatever. Will the Jedi continue on? Are we going to still see Star Wars in this era and in the future of this era moving forward as Jedi? Like, are we going to see Jedi and Sith anymore, or is it all going to end? I don't think so. What do you guys think?
I don't think they can. Jedi is so synonymous with Star Wars, and it is such a it's a brand. It's part of their the marketing. It's part of the framework of the universe. It's kind of I don't want to say like the X-Men to the Marvel, right? But like it's so like ingrained in kind of the way we understand Star Wars as it's been presented to us so far, that while it's been so flawed, and while, to be honest, we don't care about the Jedi as much as we care about the characters as Jedi, right? Like we care about the Jedi because we care about Luke, and because we care about Yoda, and because we care about Obi-Wan. We don't care about like
the religion.
We saw this in the prequels. Yeah, we don't care about the religion. So like, I think it's hard because the writer, like in me, wants to say, scrap it, come up with something new. But I also know that it is incredibly difficult to build something as powerful as Jedi, and just abandoning that because of the limited storytelling capacity as of right now seems kind of stupid. Also, they're coming back to like Knights of the Old Republic at some point. They're going to do it. And
or even earlier. I honestly, I think everyone has a little guess in their mind that maybe Rian Johnson's going back to the origins of the founding of the Jedi. And do you start that story from year zero and catch up? I think that's safer. Like if I'm Rian Johnson, I'm going to do a whole new trilogy, and it's got to have Jedi. Where do I want to? What sandbox do I want to play in? After Episode 9, with the First Order? No, I think it's going way earlier, and I think that was the whole reason for the temple and the origins of how all that started with the text and everything else. It's just for me. Yeah, go ahead, Pete.
I was just gonna say, like, if you look at The Last Jedi, you see a bunch of ancient texts that are all different. So it'd be kind of a cool concept if he's going back that far, and there's a bunch of different like force using traditions basically that eventually merge and become the Jedi. It's like a bunch of people coming together. And if he just picked like one of those or a couple of those and like dealt with that in like a really far back time period,
and the birth
that'd be pretty cool.
Like the falling of an early Jedi into the Sith and like that kind of thing. Like that would be a fun story. And I can get totally behind that. And no, I don't want to see this. I'm going to preface this by saying I don't want to see this, but I know it's going to happen, is that we saw already that Order 66 was basically ineffective. So, like, I mean, it was effective in, like, getting rid of all the Jedi, but it did not get rid of every single Last Jedi. And if you're telling me that, like, some Jedi didn't escape before that or hadn't left already to go do the unknowns, like the universe, and is going to build up their own Jedi Order out there, and, like, there's no way we're not getting a traditional Jedi from the prequel sequel era coming back. I feel like, I mean, we saw it already with Rebels. We've seen it in other places, like other Jedi. If Darth Maul is alive, like, everything is on the table, right? Like they are going to bring back some Jedi. I remember when The Force Awakens, during the nice speculation period before the movie came out, that everyone kind of had their idea when the saga would end. It would end like a Bruce Lee movie where, like, Bruce is overlooking like 30 students training, in a courtyard below him, and he's like, oh, ha, ha, ha. You know what I mean? They're all doing their practice stuff. Like she would start some new temple and everything. But I think the underlying narrative of Star Wars was the whole idea of Jedi for a business. You know what I mean? A religious business of cops who ended up being, generals in war. And the whole thing is this a religion or is this a military force? And I will always bank on they're supposed to be monks who are not supposed to believe in violence. And that whole thing, because, I posted a funny tweet this week because I was thinking, and I go, you know what? If the Force really wanted to wipe out the Jedi to make it balanced, and the Force did make Anakin out of nowhere, then Palpatine's like the real MVP. You know, he did it on his own accord to help out the Force, doing the right thing. He didn't do the wrong thing. He did the right thing by helping the Force to everything out. And everyone's like laughing. I'm going, really, Max? I'm like, think about it. I mean, if you really think the Force is an active, conscious thing that's trying to find balance, then he was just helping along.
There's also this interesting paradox now that we have all these Force-sensitive people, and they can do these extraordinary things with their Force-sensitive powers, but the
kid in the broom
teachings, the only teachings you can do right now are the Jedi or kind of the dark side training, right? So like,
sure.
I can see a version of the Bruce Lee ending with Rey training people that is not her training them to be Jedi, but just like, well, how are these Force-sensitive people going to exist in the universe? You know what I mean? Like, for the Force-sensitive people who want to make a difference, who want to be involved, who kind of want to use their powers, what is the way they use that? Because I do think you can't solve it all by saying, like, okay, Jedi done now. Like, we're out, you know, no more Force-sensitive, because, like, they will exist, right? So they've sent up this kind of...
Life finds a way. It's the Force is always going to be existing in the galaxy. And so I don't know... Like, I know we're talking a little bit about what could possibly come in, but I'd be more likely to see Rey walking away with one student and sort of going on the sort of wandering monk path and just like visiting people and maybe finding folks that are Force sensitive and teaching them how to commune with the Force, but not teaching them techniques. So they're opening themselves up, but they're not becoming, as you're saying, weaponized. And
because that's essentially what you're doing.
The problem with like my whole view of the Jedi is they're basically an entire order of people that are white knuckling it all the time, because if they give into the dark side a little bit, they're going to lose it. And so they're like, I got to stay in the light side. I got to stay in the light side. It'll dominate my destiny. I got to stay in the light side. Well, and that's it's not sustainable long term. You can't do that.
Well,
everybody's not going to be able to do that.
That's the biggest lesson I had to do. Like, I got a bunch of emails earlier this week about people talking to me about The Last Shot. I get like 20 a week sometimes. And this one was like, everyone was talking about Luke's, like, why would Luke do this? And it's like, I had to do a refresher for everybody. And I did it on Twitter real quick on just 4 quick tweets, that it all goes back to the lesson in the cave. And Ryan Johnson did something brilliant here. He's like, okay, if I got to do a story about Luke and I have to have Luke fail, where am I going to go? Obviously go back to the cave. And the cave, the biggest failure of Luke in the cave was the one that Yoda talked about, that the Force is supposed to be used for knowledge and defense and nothing else. And when Luke faces Vader in the cave, Luke activates his lightsaber before Vader does. Luke applies aggression first. And of course, he finds out that if you do that, you'll succumb to the dark side, hence he sees his face in the mask. We think that Luke learns this lesson in Jedi, but the fact is he doesn't. Initially, when he meets Vader, Vader lights his saber first, then Luke does, right? And then what happens? They fight, Luke finds a hiding place because Vader gets all badass taking out the trellis that he's standing on. But then he mentions going after Leia, and then Luke loses it. Luke gives himself to the dark side of the Force, and he goes after his father through hate. And it's only in the last minute when he recognizes the hand being lost and his own hand being lost, humanity comes back in, he chooses love over his father, the end. But did Luke learn the lesson about not igniting the saber and giving in to hate? Because when he sees Kylo in his hut, and he sees Kylo's future, he gets scared, he succumbs to fear, and he gets hatred, and he ignites the saber first. Again, Luke makes the mistake that the cave was warning him about. And Kylo sees it. That's the final moment where he puts Kylo's over the edge, and we are where we are. It's like Luke didn't learn his lesson from the cave. And it was brilliant by Johnson to do this. It all flows thematically. It's perfect. And so, here we are again with Rey. And that's when I go back to The Force Awakens, because when she realizes, oh yeah, the Force, because he tells her, remember, he's in there holding the saber up against her face, like literally on the edge, and she's like, that's right, the Force. The nice music plays in, and as she comes on all mean badass, she's tapping into the bad side of the Force. That's not the good side of the Force that gives Rey that huge surge of hate, going after Kylo, stabbing at him, poking at him, flipping him around. You look at her face. That's not the good side. That's her really leaning into the Force because she doesn't understand it too, which makes sense. It's just like Ezra in the first season of Rebels. When he taps into the Force and it ends up being the dark side, remember that Kanan gets really freaked out about, saying, you're new to this, you have to be very careful because it sneaks in on you, and you just will. Remember when Ezra just went after the wolves and made the wolves or whatever go after the Empire that was there. He didn't even realize he was doing it. So it's like, for me, it's one of those things that I'm looking now, like, what is the lesson here for Jedi? It's like, what is Rey going to do? Is Rey just going to... She's going to fight Kylo. That's inevitable. But is it going to end with Kylo dying, and then what does she do? Is it both of them dying? Which doesn't happen in the Star Wars film. That's not going to happen. You're not going to kill off your main protagonist.
And I so don't want Kylo to die. I mean, I know he's going
not
to,
redeemable.
but also...
I really don't think he's redeemable either. We can't go down that road either. We can't.
I don't think he's redeemable, but I do think people that are not redeemable still end up out there, right? I like the idea that he's lurking, that like he makes it through and he's lurking and he's kind of living and grappling with what he did still, just on a smaller scale. But that's just me. I didn't know that won't happen. But like, I also don't think she could kill him. You know what I mean? Like, I really don't. So
exactly. Maybe he sacrifices himself, but would be totally out of character. From the 2 films that we have from him, it's just not his drive. It just isn't. Adam Driver is this really passionate guy, and it comes throughout in his acting, right? I'm the same way. It's like if I'm driven towards something, I'm not changing my mind unless something dramatic happens to me in such a personal level. But he killed his own father. If that doesn't do it, and it's patricide for me is just a step too far. It's a bridge too far. And I really don't see redemption from that. And there shouldn't be. Damn it. Disney kids should learn not to kill your father.
But there doesn't have to be redemption. There can be penance. There can be him
penance
in the movie in complete
isolation
penance. On like a mountaintop somewhere by himself and just suffering with the ghosts of what he's done.
That to me is perfect. That to me is like suffering long-term by yourself or devoid of contact, I think is even more. But it's just, and plus with this movie, Leia's got to find an exit, which makes things even more difficult. And it's funny as a tweet that I did about 6 months ago that got a lot of traffic. And I told everyone, like, the biggest mystery of the Skywalker saga isn't who's Rey's parents. It's who's Anakin's parents. Who's his father? That's the real mystery. Because everyone's like, oh, well, he's born of the Force. Is he really? She doesn't know what happened. And I believe she's honest when she says that. It's the old wives' tale, right? It's actually the original wives' tale. The virgin birth. And I honestly think I wouldn't be surprised. I heard rumors 2 years ago from not a reliable source, but he did have some credibility, and he was whispered to me that he had overheard stuff about about Anakin's father, and that it would be coming up. Dismissed it 2 years ago. I couldn't get anywhere confirmation anywhere on this, anything I would even dare write about. But it was interesting to hear that, not because it's a possible rumor something could happen, because it's a question that nobody was asking. And that's what intrigued me more. A brilliant thing that JJ could do for episode 9 would be to go back to talk about Vader's father. It's one of those mysteries you can tie in and people will buy it, because people will buy that more than a virgin Anakin birth. At least I think they will. What did you guys think?
Well, I don't know about that, but that really makes me think, like, when we start questioning things in canon, when we start questioning things in them. I mean, I'm not 100% convinced they're not going to go back and retcon Rey's parents. I'm really not.
Oh,
like,
she'll have parents.
Yeah, I'm 100% sure, not 100, I'll say 95% sure that JJ's going back and he's like, just kidding. Like, so, and I don't think that's ever what he had in mind. Or maybe he did, and that was like one possibility he was throwing up out there, but I don't think. So, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we're going back at some point. It would be stupid for them not to revisit Anakin as a child at some point.
Yeah,
so
that would be nice.
And Anakin's birth or Anakin's family, like, I wouldn't be surprised if we go back there. That's all I'm saying.
Well, yeah, because this is the Skywalker saga. And to me, it's the real mystery, right? Because, I mean, if you really want to keep with your feet on the ground, and I know this is a space opera, right? But you really kind of have to feet in the ground. We know Anakin was born from a mom, but we don't know his father. And the question did come up, right? Qui-Gon asked, who's the boy's father? I don't know what happened. And it's like, to me, it's a perfect setup. Like, there obviously was a father, because, I mean, I'll never forget the very first reviews I read about The Phantom Menace from the Hollywood, the big trade people, was, I forget who it was. And I love saying, when the part came talking about, like, there was no father, and I love his line going, oh, for heaven's sake, really? He's a virgin birth? Like the Hollywood just reviewer was just incensed. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, how would George Lucas go far that far?
I think you hit on the real kicker there, which is, that being said, it is more dangerous for them to retcon something that George did. And maybe we're far enough out now that we're cool with that.
Yeah.
But
is it a retcon? But is it a retcon? I think it's one of those open-ended bits that
that's clear creator intent. He's going for Force Jesus. That's not even like, dude, there's no doubt about that. It's obvious.
I think that it just, I mean, it might not have any. The funny thing is, like,
it was
okay. Well, here's the thing: the Skywalkers are special. They're not like any other Force users. They are truly special. Anakin was the chosen one. So the real question comes out to, and what's important, is the beginning of that story from beginning to end. If it really is true that Anakin is just a virgin birth born from the Force, then that answers a lot of questions. That means the Force built this guy knowing exactly who he would be to wipe everybody out. I mean,
well, they sort of played this in they played with this in the Darth Plagueis novel.
Yeah, and a good novel I love very much.
They were experimenting in the Force, and the sort of the subtext is that they accidentally caused the Force to create Anakin as a response to what they were trying to do to the Force.
Sure. Which, of course, has spurned all the theories that we heard about Plagueis being Snoke before Snoke was actually Snoke and all that other jazz. And I'm not saying it's Plagueis. God, it's the last thing I'm saying. But it's one of those things that it would be, if I was J.J. Abrams and I'm really looking for that oh shit moment where everybody goes, there's the biggest twist ever, because what bigger twist could there possibly be in Star Wars today is, oh no, not who's Rey's parents, who's Anakin's father. That could be huge in a way that no one, I mean, to me, like, if you're looking for that real holy crap factor, that would be it.
But
that would be major.
Yeah, the only problem with that, though, is kind of the same problem that we saw in The Last Jedi, which is that a holy crap factor kind of has to have that body present there, right? Like, I am your father, he was there, right? Like, you can think about other twists, but the best part of the twist is kind of having that in-person interaction about it. And I guess we could kind of see it through a flashback. But I mean, we got this with Rey a little bit, right? Like the reveal that her parents were nobodies. Like we didn't actually see them, right? We never saw them. And that was, I feel like, a huge like missing point in terms of the emotional connection with that breakthrough. So if they were going to do it, they would have to do some crazy, I mean, we could do one of those Force visions again, I guess, or something else. But I feel like we still wouldn't have a personal enough connection for it to make the impact.
No, I think Rian Johnson did exactly what he was told to do, and I think he did it right. He's like, hey, listen, it's not my movie that talks about Rey's parents. That's left for the third film. That's the big reveal for her, for the main protagonist. My job is to keep people wondering and do it in a unique way. And it was very smart the way he did it. He did it through a Force vision that Kylo sees, and the biggest lesson of The Last Jedi, like we said a million times, is don't believe your Force visions. They all turn out to be wrong. And so when he sees Rey's parents as nobodies on Jakku, they probably were on Jakku, dressed like nobodies, but it doesn't mean who they were. They could be royalty for all we know. You know what I mean? That just got abandoned or they're in disguise. But that's what Kylo sees. But Kylo, like we've known for The Last Jedi, every Force vision they've had, even Snoke's, looking at Kylo was wrong. Right? I see you turning the saber. Yeah, he's turning it all right. They cut you in half. It's like you can't trust Force visions ever.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
it's a great setup by Rian.
And it's pretty clear that she's the granddaughter of Obi-Wan Kenobi and Bo-Katan. I mean, it's all going to be revealed in Episode 9. Everybody's going to freak out. And it's going to be Rey, Kenobi, Katan, and it's just amazing.
It's going to be. I mean, and that's the thing. It's like Rey's parents doesn't matter because I care about Rey. I care about what Rey does. That's the thing that matters most. We've talked about this to death. But it would be so interesting for the Skywalker saga because we keep going back to how is Kylo going to find an ending to this? What if Kylo's main motivation now is to figure out where his family comes from? Why Vader was so powerful and why Anakin was so special, right? And he finds out something. It's just like Pete was referencing in the Plagueis novel that the Sith were really tinkering around with the Force and creating something with living life. And then, of course, we saw that in The Revenge of the Sith during that opera scene with Anakin and how he talks about the tale of Plagueis like cheating death. And I think that if this really is going to be the end of the Skywalker saga, which I think the marketing is going to be pushing like crazy for, and this really is about Driver ending this whole thing because he's the last Skywalker, I think you can't do that without at least discussing the entire story in reverb. Like, you're going to go back and review it for the audience. And I think his father would be an interesting take. I doubt it'll happen. But for me, wow, what a brilliant opportunity that you can do. That I think it would be very interesting. Like it would be one of those great moments in movie. I think everyone would talk about that movie forever if that was the case. You know what I mean? What'll happen? Probably not. I just think it would be cool. But as the Jedi goes, I don't know. What do you guys? Do you guys really think that so? I guess wrapping this thing up, do we think there's going to be Jedi in either film form, live action form, after this era of Episode 9, like continuing on with the First Order, or just in the future? Are we going to see that in Star Wars, or are we just going to see life before, and that's it?
I'd say there's about 105% chance we'll see Jedi afterwards.
You think so?
Yeah.
You think we'll see stories post Episode 9 in this timeline?
Yep, with Jedi.
So
you want to have Skywalkers, but you'll have Jedi.
You have Jedi? Do you think that the First Order sticks around? Kylo goes, but the First Order stays in power?
Based on like the way the story is right now, I think that makes the most sense. I don't think it makes sense to have a tiny resistance take out a galaxy controlling First Order at this point. I think it's more interesting storytelling wise if you leave the First Order in place, even if you take out Kylo. And I think that sets you up for more storytelling down the road.
Yeah, because how are they? Rian Johnson left the Resistance with nobody.
There's like 20 guys on the Falcon.
How do they come back from that to go against a mammoth First Order? And don't forget, star systems, half of the star systems are on their side too. It's not like they're just doing it by overwhelming military force. They have allies. Money, material, politics. It's like how... the more I think about The Last Jedi, the more I realize it feels like a third trilogy film and not a middle trilogy. And I don't know. I have a feeling we're going back in time. I think we're going to take a long breather before we ever come back to the First Order of this era. But then again, you look at the Disney parks. They're all going to be First Order everything, right? And and that's the kind of thing that's kind of strange about this. Why build the parks? If you're going to build the parks, why not do it with all the future stuff with Rian Johnson's new trilogy, Benioff and Weiss, the stuff that's coming in the future? Why do something that's just wrapping up and we're never going to hear from it for a while?
I think the idea of Batuu, which is the planet it's going to be on, right? Yep. Being an outpost in the Black Spire outpost, and it being a passing through for people around the galaxy, and that it's not... right now they're saying it's First Order timeline, but I think they're just going to kind of leave it open, would be so that other creatures, other storylines could kind of drift in and out of there. And they're never getting rid of the stormtroopers. You can see that the stormtroopers carried on even though it wasn't the Empire anymore, right? So the stormtroopers will basically be the only thing that keeps it consistent. But the stormtrooper outfit, that could make it out. It's like the Mandalorian outfit, right? That could make it out anywhere. So I think no matter where we end up, oh no, he's yawning. No matter where we end up, folks. I think, yeah. No matter where we end up, I think stormtroopers, Jedi, lightsabers, blasters, everything else will be different. Those things will stay the same.
I can't wait till we get that first trailer. I think that first trailer is on Celebration is gonna knock our socks off, and I think JJ's gonna make it cryptic as hell. We're not gonna make end to end sense of it. And I really think if the security's meaning anything so far, it's been really tight. So it's like, man, that's good. Maybe that's a good thing, but we still got at least a little longer to wait, another whole year. But next year's the fun year. Next year is the trailers. There's going to be a lot more speculation, more things coming out. So it's not like it's going to be bone dry like it is now. But it'll be interesting to see. I really hope, by some measure, that the third film really is about Rey. I really hope she takes front and center. And I hope Kylo, of course, I want to see his story finish out in an equitable way. But this is her story. It should be her story. And if we got in the beginning, let JJ finish it up with her too. I think that's not fair. It's right. I bought into this girl in the desert. I want to see her story. I really want to see her and what she's going for. But it's now, how do you write that now, given that the second movie she doesn't have it? But we'll see. Go ahead.
I will call back to my other favorite my other favorite thing, Lord of the Rings, to say
Sure.
those movies, if you look at kind of, I think Merry and Pippin are a great example, where basically the first two movies, they're fluff, right? Like they are, I mean, they have a little bit to do in the second, but it's like a little bit more Treebeard, and they're fluff. And then in the third movie, out of nowhere, and that being said, that movie's like 1,000,000 hours long, but out of nowhere, they have a real story and you care about them. And at the end, they have true development. So, I mean, as much as I get worried about it sometimes, I also have seen it done. And I've seen it done in a movie where Merry and Pippin weren't even the most important characters, right? Like Aragorn had a great story and Gandalf had a great story. Like, I feel like they can do it. It takes a lot of work. It takes a Tolkien, right? But like, I have faith in J.J. Abrams.
Well, I mean, that's the reason why the Lord of the Rings trilogy is so fantastic, because it is still an Aragorn story. It's funny. You can look at Frodo. Oh, it's Frodo's story. Yeah, Frodo's a big part of it, but Frodo is not the real story here. It's really the return of the king, right? And then of course the collaboration works across all of the streams, and they all find beautiful endings because that's Tolkien's a master, and his work is survived forever, and that's why how great it is. But there are parallels there. I think you can look at Rey like Frodo, who's just going along with the journey when everyone else, when the real story is Kylo and where he's going in the Skywalker saga. Maybe there are great parallels there. You know what I mean? I mean, if you're sitting back writing this, you're definitely watching Lord of the Rings to get some hints, right? That's what these guys do. And yeah, maybe there is. Which by the way, that's a series I can't wait to start up, by the way, with Amazon.
Oh, yes.
We're doing a podcast on that.
Yeah,
we're doing
for
that.
Sure.
We're totally doing that. Because I've been on a Tolkien binge lately. In fact, I even got to last night, I'm like reading Dragonlance novels, like what I did when I was 13 for Dungeons and Dragons, and that whole, I'm getting back into Fantasyscape lately. I don't know where it's coming from, but I'm enjoying it. It's nice to go back in time. Okay, guys, I think we had a great discussion tonight, especially for, this is like one of our shows where we really delved into a topic and not so much the news, which has been really fun. I enjoyed it very much. All right, guys. Thanks again, everyone, for watching tonight's show. Please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and this podcast on iTunes. Have a great night, everybody. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube at The Star Wars Post. Great job. Good night, guys. All right, let's kick this pig.
We hope you enjoyed another episode of the Star Wars Post livecast. Please subscribe, rate, and review our livecast on YouTube, Facebook, and iTunes. And don't forget to get all your Star Wars news, reviews, features, and more at thestarwarspost.com. The galaxy at your fingertips. Good night, and may the Force be with you.